Time passed quickly. After the party ended, Zeke also tiredly lay down on the bed and pondered. Gren Zenard more than anything. It seems like he didn't regress. I don't think he will understand the meaning of these words. If the reason for my regression is the key to challenging fate, then it is possible that Zenard is also a regressor. However, it is possible that the key to challenging fate from the beginning had nothing to do with my regression, as I thought, or he is pretending that he is not a regressor for some hidden purpose. That's all. Now is not my concern anymore, whether he regressed or not. I have no intention of getting involved with him anymore. I just want to tell him that I'm fine and following his advice. I think it's really helpful. Living like this is not bad, so my relationship with Zenard in this life ends here, Zeke thought to himself. Meanwhile, like Zenard, after returning to his tent, was also pondering the same issue. Zeke. Who exactly are you? He looks exactly like the Zeke I remember, but his behavior and personality are completely different. And one thing is for sure, he is not the Demon King Zeke Moore, or the heir of Zeke's steel will. Could it be the brave Zeke? Zenard speculated. But then he shook his head in denial. No, it doesn't feel the same at all. Then there is only one possibility left, that is a variable. Thinking of this guy started to hold his head and grit his teeth again. But why now? That guy hasn't changed until now. If he acts in his own way, not too dangerous. I have lived for thousands of years, so I understand, even if Zeke's appearance changes depending on the situation, the overwhelming destructive power is still the same, even becoming stronger, enough to pose a threat to me. Should I deal with him now? Zenard bit his lip and thought, and after a while, this guy decided to give up. No, I need to know why he changed first. I also want to know why a person who was innocent like her also changed, before she said that Zeke was the reason for her change. That bastard, how dare he do this? Zenard thought and revealed an extremely crazy face. And it took a few seconds for him to calm down and think further. There are too many variables in this regression. Must be calm and plan ahead. I will send someone to observe Zeke's actions and then come up with a countermeasure, he said as he began to lie down on the bed. But as soon as he closed his eyes, Zeke's previous words rang in his ears. I hope you will become a good person in the next life. Do you understand the meaning of these words? Why did he say that to me? Zenard wondered in his heart. Time passed quickly. A few days later. At this time, Zeke's group was preparing to leave the Carwoodman church. Goodbye, young Miss Lavella. Well, be careful on your way, brother Zeke. She nodded in response, while the two young men, Han and Snock, also bowed to her. Brother Zeke is really like a gust of wind, gently blowing and passing by, freely flying as he wishes, she said admiringly, and old man Weich felt the same way. That's right. It would be better if he rested a bit. I don't know if we will ever see him again. Take care of yourself, brother Zeke, she said to herself. Back to our main character. At this time he also looked at the two children in front of him and asked again to make sure, have you brought everything yet? Of course, Han said confidently. Then he also withdrew this expression and asked, but Mr. Zeke, where are we going this time? Hearing this, Zeke also began to hesitate and think a bit. It seems like we need to go there to find the sword symbolizing the Demon King. After thinking, Zeke also said the next location. We will go to Vialuan City, a tourist city. Scene changes to Vialuan City. This is a beautiful city filled with tourists from all over the world to visit. And here, the white-haired sorceress who had attacked before, was also gazing at a food stall with longing eyes. However, after checking her purse, she had to sigh and accept that she was penniless. But just at this moment, a hand reached out and grabbed her hood, and pulled it down. Seeing this, she turned around and discovered that this person was none other than Zeke. Hello, long time no see, he said with a smile. Going back to a few minutes before, Zeke, along with Han and Snock, had arrived in this city. Here, he decided to reward his two subordinates with a day off. Vialuan is a small but famous tourist city known for many attractions. For one day, from now on, you two will be free. Feel free to have fun from now until tomorrow, Zeke calmly said. And the two subordinates were overjoyed. Oh freedom, they exclaimed excitedly and immediately went off to explore the city. Meanwhile, Zeke's stomach started growling, making him find a way to fill it. Should I go find something to eat? Zeke muttered, before he noticed a cloaked figure attentively watching a food stall not far away, until her hood was blown off, revealing a beautiful, familiar face. Zeke saw this, went over and greeted her. Hey, it's been a while, hasn't it? Then Zeke also conveniently bought a few skewers of grilled meat and handed her one. Across from him, the sorceress didn't take the skewer but turned to look at him with a suspicious look and asked, what are you doing? Doing what? Zeke asked while eating, making her point directly at him and remind him, have you forgotten what happened between us? Hearing that, Zeke started to remember a bit. Let's see, about what happened between us. Is it about how we used to be madly in love? Zeke said with a laugh, making her go crazy and immediately turn around and leave. Come on, I was just kidding, he quickly said. Just say what you're planning, the sorceress snapped, and Zeke replied with a smile, I already said, let's go on a date. Hearing him say that, her eyes narrowed slightly. You think I'll believe that? That's not your real intention. Come on, I'm curious about you too. I don't want to talk to you, she said with a frown, but Zeke didn't give up. That's why I suggested going on a date, so I can be with you and learn about you. You think I'll agree? She asked again. I don't know, but I understand how you feel right now, he said. And he handed her 3 skewers of meat and tempted her. Right now, you really want to eat these grilled meat skewers, and indeed, it was as he said. She really couldn't resist the taste of this and started eating like a whirlwind, making Zeke, sitting next to her, feel amazed. She eats a lot, she must be really hungry. If it wasn't grilled meat skewers but something else, I'd probably go bankrupt, Zeke thought while looking at the pile of skewers next to her. Thinking about this, he asked, so, what's your name? After saying that, he thought a bit, is it too early to ask for her name? In response to the question, the sorceress stopped eating, turned to him, and said, Layla, that's my name. Just like that, the two of them started exploring the city together, from trying different kinds of drinks, to taking her to a clothing store and having her try on all sorts of things. And for some reason, after trying on a long white dress, her mood suddenly became a little embarrassed. Hey, cheer up, that's why I told you to buy clothes when you had the chance. After all, this is a date, and a dull cloak isn't really appropriate. Right, Zeke advised, but Layla's face still hadn't stopped frowning. Is that why you're playing dress up with me? No, you look beautiful in anything. I just want you to try on different outfits. Blame yourself for being too beautiful, he said, stroking his chin. At the same time, the waiter brought out a glass of beer, and Zeke brought it to Layla, and said, drink it, you'll feel better. Hearing Zeke say that, Layla directly picked up the glass of beer and chugged it in one gulp. Long and sighed in satisfaction, and right after she finished drinking, Zeke's eyes suddenly changed and he said, you drank it, what now? I put poison in it. In response to his words, her face didn't show a hint of fear. Oh, clever, beer has to have a little poison to taste good. After saying that, the two of them started having a staring contest. And finally, she gave in and stopped this *T, then started getting to the main point. Alright, who exactly are you? Turning to Layla, after listening, her eyes also showed a serious expression and she asked back, what about you, are you really Zeke? I remember I never changed my name, so have you ever changed your last name? Which last name? Don't tell me it's that one you mentioned. More, right. Brave is my last name. If you were to change your last name, I think Steelwill would suit you better. Zeke Steelwill, he muttered. Before suddenly, noisy sounds started to come from the side, causing both of them to pay attention and turn to observe. Try it, let's see how a hero punches. You dreamed of becoming a great hero, didn't you? Come on, punch. Some provocative sound rang out. This is a matter between the two of us. What are you interfering with? Someone replied, over here. Zeke, hearing the familiar sound, immediately stood up and moved forward, and discovered that Han and Snock were having an argument with some guys inside this inn. What are you two doing here? He said, while pushing through the crowd to move forward, while the guys on the opposite side, seeing Zeke's appearance, also started to laugh mockingly. What's this? The great hero's companion? Hey, punch, what, are you scared already? They said provocatively. And his friend Snock also turned to explain everything. Those two eavesdropped on us and started causing trouble. We didn't want to cause any problems, so we ignored them, but they kept pushing forward. You two handled this wrong, Zeke said, shaking his head. At the same time, the thug in front noticed Layla's beautiful face behind Zeke and started to act like a pervert. Ah, the girl standing behind that guy is quite pretty. Saying this, he stepped forward, pushed Zeke aside, and started flirting with her. Hey, wanna hang out with us? Back to Snock, seeing this thug acting like that, he also gently reminded Zeke, Mr. Zeke, isn't that the woman from before? Maybe we should stop this. Just stay still, Zeke signaled, then pushed him aside, preventing this young man from blocking his view. At the same time, the pervert continued to flirt, even putting his dirty hand on her shoulder, then showing a very disgusting face. Oh, what's wrong, pretty girl? We'll make you happy, he said innocently, not knowing that he had officially flipped the switch to unlock her battle mode. At this time, she coldly raised her hand and directly brushed the thug's hand aside. But her tough action only made this pervert feel even more excited. What's wrong? Are you being aloof with me? But girls who are too easy aren't interesting at all, he said, laughing. And Layla also knew that if she didn't teach these perverts a lesson, they probably wouldn't give up, so at this time, a bolt of lightning began to spread from her body and directly shocked the thug in front of her, causing him to convulse and collapse to the ground. What idiots, Zeke chuckled to himself on the side. Next, a lackey, seeing his companion on the ground, immediately rushed forward, waving his arms and legs at her and not forgetting to threaten, "Do you know who we are?" Seeing this, Layla's eyes on the opposite side also began to emit streaks of lightning. However, before she was about to turn this group into grilled fish, Zeke stood in front and directly grabbed his fist. Next, while this guy didn't have time to react, he gave him a punch in the chin, causing the whole guy to fly backwards, falling right in front of the other two lackeys. And by this point, these two had also directly taken up weapons and rushed to attack. "Don't even dream about surviving and leaving this place," they roared. It's just a pity that their strength wasn't proportional to their mouths. As a result, Zeke only threw a few punches, causing these two to lie on the ground like dead dogs and weakly beg, "Please spare us." Ignoring this, after leaving the restaurant, Zeke also turned and asked, "Answer me, how did you grill him just now, rare, medium, or well done?" Turning to Layla. After a little contemplation, she suddenly stopped and asked, "Why didn't you kill them?" Hearing her say that, he also looked at her with a questioning look. "How could you say such a terrible thing to someone who is trying to be a good person? Shouldn't we avoid using force if we're trying to live righteously?" She asked back and also had her reasons. "If it's self-defense, it's not recklessness." "I think I understand you," she nodded and said, then paused for a moment. "So is it over now?" "I'm leaving," Layla said, preparing to leave, but was pulled back by Zeke. "Wait, I'm busy tomorrow, so I can't. Or in 10 days, let's meet again at the place where we first met. It would be a pity to part like this. You're also curious about me, aren't you? I've noticed your probing eyes," Zeke suggested. And the sorceress Layla happily agreed, "Okay, don't go back on your word." Looking at the beautiful figure walking in front, Zeke at this time also had some thoughts. "Well, I didn't expect to be able to close the distance in such a short time. What exactly is it because of? First of all, it's suspicious that a high-level sorceress is so dirt poor. She also seems unfamiliar, even shy with many things, but when ordering food or talking about fashion sense, it's not like she doesn't know anything. In short, it seems like she has knowledge but lacks experience. Plus, the fact that she called me more means she must be from the future." Zeke stroked his chin, thinking. At the same time, his friend Han turned and asked Zeke, "Mr. Zeke, do we have any special plans for tomorrow? If not, I think I'll go visit some tourist spots." "Okay, I'll go with you. I know a very amazing tourist spot," Zeke said with a smile. Time quickly passed until the next morning, switching scenes to the ruins of Vialuan. At this time, Zeke's group was also present in the ruins to conduct a tour. Looking at the ruins inside, Snaka's face also became astonished. Who would have built a place like this, and for what reason? It seems like it was built a long time ago, Han speculated, while Zeke didn't pay much attention, because he was still busy thinking about where his previous life's weapon was now. "Where's Tornium? I used to smash everything back then, so I'm not too sure now. Just go as far as I can remember," Zeke thought to himself, and quickly moved forward, until they saw a sign warning not to enter. Looking at this, Han's footsteps suddenly stopped. "Mr. Zeke, is it okay to go deeper inside?" As soon as he finished speaking, suddenly, the space around them experienced an unclear tremor. And about 2 seconds after the tremor passed, he turned to ask them, "Did anyone touch anything? What was that sound?" Responding to this, Snock pointed forward and said, "The sound came from over there." At this moment, in front of them was a wall with a lighter-colored section than the rest. "We're blocked, huh? Could there be something behind this wall?" Snock speculated, while Zeke had some thoughts of his own. The path to Tornium also had a secret passage like this. But did this door exist back then? As he thought this, he reached out and touched the wall. And immediately after that, the wall suddenly split in two, revealing a secret passage inside, and this also greatly surprised Han. "Wait a minute, this door, it only reacts to you, Mr. Zeke. When we touched it earlier, it didn't open." "That's right, it didn't budge at all," Snock nodded, saying, "Even our main character can't understand what's happening. Why does it only react to me? It's so different from before. And this energy, something around here is disturbing my senses. What's causing this?" He frowned, thinking, and then all three of them quickly stepped inside. "It feels familiar, but it's not from Tornium," Zeke speculated before Han discovered something and hurriedly called out, "Mr. Zeke, it's over there." Hearing the call, he turned to look forward and discovered a sword deeply embedded in the brick floor, and as soon as he saw its shape, Zeke recognized it as the holy sword of the hero Gren Zenert, the Estelade. Why is it here? Zeke wondered in his heart. If the symbol of the demon lord Zeke Moore's power is the demon sword Tornium, then the sword symbolizing the hero of the sun, Zenert, is the holy sword Estelade. That's right, one is stuck here, this powerful sword. Zenard even dealt me a fatal blow with this sword. But why is it here? The sword is different from the demon sword Tornium in the way it chooses its master. Those who are unworthy will not be able to lift it from beside. Han, at this moment, looked curiously at the sword and asked, Zeke, do you know what it is? It's the holy sword, Zeke calmly said, causing both of them to startle and exclaim, what, a holy sword? After saying that, Han asked somewhat hesitantly, if I can pull this sword out, can I become a hero? That's right, Zeke nodded in affirmation, causing both of them to start having some strange thoughts and looking at each other. Next, Snock also raised his hand to ask for an opinion. Mr. Zeke, can I also try? Responding to this question, Zeke calmly said, it's up to you, but you probably can't, because you've already signed a contract with Naum. Its conditions for choosing a master are very strict. I understand, Snock said sadly. However, Zeke seemed a little curious, so he encouraged, but just try. Hearing his boss say that, the young man also raised some fighting spirit and stepped forward, reaching out with both hands to tightly grasp the holy sword. Under the encouraging gaze of Naum, Snock began to use all the strength of his body to pull this sword up. However, after a while of trying, this sword didn't budge at all. Then he had to give up and go down, saying, as expected, it's impossible to pull it out. Seeing this, Naum on his shoulder also turned to comfort his master, causing Snock to feel a little better. Naum, that's right, I don't need the holy sword. As long as I have Naum, I'm fine. Not paying attention to the master and disciple, Han began to turn to Zeke and say, Zeke, why don't you try? No need. Zeke shook his head in refusal, because he knew that it wasn't the right sword for him. After thinking, Zeke asked back, do you want to try, Han, over here? Han, hearing that, just scratched his head. No, I don't think I can pull it out. But at least you should try once. Zeke frowned, saying. At this moment, rapid footsteps began to ring out not far away, causing all three of them to pay attention. And Han even gripped his weapon tightly to prepare for any situation. There's another passage over there, Zeke thought as he paid attention to the passage not far away and speculated in his heart, who are they? Are they here to find the holy sword? Based on the footsteps, it seems like they are well-trained fighters. Impossible, could it be Zenard? Just like that, they began to silently wait for the other party to come. And after walking out of this corridor, the person who ran out was none other than the girl Layla. Hey, what are you doing there? Zeke said in surprise. But before Layla could answer, countless black-cloaked figures rushed out from inside the passage. Catch them, they're trapped, someone inside the crowd shouted. And when Zeke saw that the other party had no good intentions, he directly swung his sword, slashing out a wave of sword energy, aiming at them while shouting, get down. Seeing this, the girl Layla also hurriedly bent down to avoid being ripped apart, and the sword energy, after flying forward, then created a huge explosion. Over here, Zeke now also reached out to pull her up, while asking, are these new acquaintances of yours? They're not my friends, they're pursuers, Layla said. Why are they chasing you? Zeke continued to ask. And before his question, Layla was a bit silent, as if she didn't want to answer it. Seeing that, Zeke understood and didn't pry any further. She's quite famous, isn't she? He muttered, then turned his face forward, noticing that the cloaked figures seemed almost unscathed after the attack. There are quite a few of them. Saying this, Zeke pointed his sword at them and questioned, are you accomplices of those who harm others? You're all wearing the same clothes, so I assume, on the opposite side. The leader of the group, after seeing Zeke, his expression darkened slightly and he said, we'll change the plan. Keep that one and the core alive. Kill the rest. Hearing the order, the black-cloaked figures drew their weapons and charged forward in unison. On this side, his friend Han was having difficulty raising his sword to block the attacks from two black-cloaked figures. Their attacks were strong enough to make his body tremble. Meanwhile, Snock in the back was using his power, controlling countless sharp pillars of rock to erupt from the ground, aiming straight at the two cloaked figures, catching them off guard and sending them flying. Those two are doing well, but they'll soon realize the difference in skill. They're all experts. This place is too small for Layla to use large-scale magic. Zeke thought silently to himself. At the same time, Layla used a spell called Thunderstrike, firing bolts of lightning at the cloaked figures, causing them to twitch like dying fish. Back to Zeke, he was now paying attention to the leader, especially that guy. He's on a demon level, his skills far surpass mine in the present. Without the demon sword, I can't compare to him. Thinking this, the leader unleashed an incredible speed, circling behind him and delivering a slash. After doing so, the leader contemptuously sneered, compared to your blabbering, your skills are truly disappointing. Next, he swung a powerful sword, sending Zeke flying towards the holy sword. Captain, he's near Estelade, someone said worriedly. However, the captain's face showed no concern. Don't worry. Someone like him won't be able to pull the sword out. Let's end this here. Kill those two and keep the core alive, then. Deal with Wildcard and Estelade, he ordered coldly. Before a powerful burst of magic erupted behind the leader, causing him to stop in his tracks. What is this energy? Impossible. Thinking this, he hurriedly turned to look behind him. But the only thing they witnessed was a blinding golden light, followed by a loud explosion. Then, after the explosion subsided, the remaining three people stared in disbelief at Zeke. He pulled it out, Layla thought to herself as she looked at the sword in Zeke's hand. Speaking of our protagonist, Zeke, to be honest, he couldn't believe that he had drawn the holy sword Estelade. Damn it, after hearing his story that I couldn't possibly draw the holy sword, I really wanted to stab him, so I tried to draw the sword. Who would have thought I could actually draw it out? I never thought I could do something so amazing in my life, Zeke thought to himself. Meanwhile, the sorceress Layla dazedly stepped forward and asked him, "How did you pull the sword out?" Hearing her question, Zeke rested the sword on the ground and turned to her. "Didn't you see, if I hadn't drawn it out, we might both be dead." "No, what I mean is, how could you pull it out? That sword is," Layla hurriedly explained. But without her saying much, Zeke already understood. "It's the holy sword Estelade, only those who are worthy can lift it," Zeke said calmly, and at this moment, the sorceress, after 3 seconds of contemplation, looked at Zeke with a suspicious look and asked, "Are you worthy?" "I have no idea," Zeke shrugged. Next, he stuck the sword back into its original position, causing Layla to be extremely surprised. "Why are you putting it back in?" "I don't want to use it, it doesn't suit me," Zeke explained. "You know what this sword represents, right?" she reminded him. And of course, Zeke was very clear about this, but he had already intended to use his old sword, Tornium. "I don't care, I plan to use a different sword." After hearing this, she vaguely guessed something and asked, "Don't tell me you plan to use the Tornium." "You know about that sword?" Zeke asked in surprise. Then he cheerfully waved to the two guys in front. "Oh, you're still alive. Is the work here done? Let's move on," he said with a smile. However, at this moment, Layla reached out and pulled Zeke back and dragged him towards the holy sword, while demanding, "Pull it out," I said, "pull it out." "Use this sword instead of Tornium," Layla said with a voice full of seriousness. However, Zeke still refused coldly. "No, this sword is predestined for someone else, I'll just use Tornium." Responding to this, Layla's face began to show a hint of anger and questioned, "You said this time you would live a decent life, so what you hold must be Estelade, not Tornium." Was she worried that if I used Tornium, I would be corrupted? Zeke thought in his heart and replied, "To live a decent life, I don't necessarily have to wield Estelade and Tornium. It's true that the sword is cursed, but that doesn't mean its owner is always corrupted." On this side, after Zeke's explanations, Layla started to become a bit pensive. Then she reached out and grabbed Zeke's arm, and said in a pleading voice, "No. Use Estelade." Back to Zeke. Before he could even answer, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his arm. "What the? Why does my finger suddenly hurt like this?" At this moment, an image of something that looked like tree roots was appearing at the fingernail of his middle finger. At the same time, the holy sword Estelade beside him suddenly unleashed a violent surge of energy, forming an energy storm that made Zeke even more confused. What's going on now? Outside, the pressure created by this storm made it impossible for Han and Snock to even get close, so they could only anxiously say, "Mr. Zeke." Inside, Zeke pointed at the storm and asked, "Did you do this?" "No, this isn't magic, it's possible that this sword is trying to transport us to another dimension." Layla voiced her thoughts, making Zeke just sigh. "Damn it, it looks like there's no other choice." After thinking, he turned and shouted at the other two, "Han, Snock, stay there, wait for me a bit. If you don't see me back for too long, just go back first, just wait for me at the inn." "Yes sir, but you're the only one who can open the secret chamber door," Han said anxiously, and quickly remembered Layla's path from before and said to them, "There's still another path that Layla went in from." "That path is blocked," Layla added. "Let's see, this is difficult," Zeke muttered, and at this moment, knowing that Zeke was worried about his two subordinates, this girl used some kind of magic to create a hole in the energy storm, and then threw a ring out, at the same time instructing, "This might help." "Looks like there's nothing you can't do," Zeke nodded in praise. "Mr. Z's, be careful," Han called out. "Don't worry about me, worry about yourselves first," Zeke replied, and immediately after, the bodies of both Zeke and Layla disappeared in front of Han. Seeing this, Snock couldn't hide the worry on his face. "He'll be alright, right? Of course, he'll be safe and sound," Han said reassuringly. "But Senior, what should we do while we wait for him to come back?" Snock continued to ask. "Let's see, I don't know either," perhaps thinking, He glanced at the cloaked figures lying scattered below and said happily, "Let's go loot the spoils, they look like they have a lot of money." Just like that, after searching for a while, the two of them actually found a small pile of gold coins, along with countless bottles of medicine with unknown effects. "Mr. Zeke will be very happy when he sees this stuff," Snock said with a smile. "That's right, we collected a lot of gold coins and medicine. Should we take that whole pile too?" "Yes, let's just stuff it all into the magic pouch," Han nodded. Next, he looked at the holy sword in front of him and thought for a moment, "I wonder if I can pull out the holy sword Estelade. There's no harm in trying once, right?" Thinking this young man couldn't suppress his curiosity and began to move towards the sword. "Oh, Senior, are you going to pull it out too?" Snock said in surprise, making the young man a little embarrassed. "I want to try it out," he said, and he put both hands firmly on the hilt of the sword and prepared to pull it out. However, just at this moment, suddenly a group of people in black cloaks rushed into the room, found them, they shouted, making the two of them extremely panicked. "Snock, get ready for what? To run, what else?" Han shouted, and the two of them quickly fled from a rain of daggers coming from the black cloaks. However, very quickly the two of them were surrounded by these people on all sides. "Did these bastards kill the captain?" "Looks like no, don't kill them yet, we need to interrogate them," they discussed among themselves. While Snock whispered to Han, "What should we do, Senior? They think we killed their comrades." Responding to this statement, a serious look appeared in Han's eyes. "What else can we do? Fight, of course. Support me from behind." After saying that, Han took the initiative to charge forward to attack first in order to gain an advantage. Next, he swung the sword in his hand forcefully, sending a black-cloaked figure flying backwards. But immediately after, he had to quickly raise his sword in front of him to block an attack from another black-cloaked figure, and after only one collision, Han knew that these people were not ordinary. Speaking of the Snock, he also used his powers this time. Control a few stones to rush straight towards the bad guys in front. "If I can hold off one of them," Snock thought to himself. However, this black-robed man also used his sword and successfully blocked the stone. Han, who was fighting, also witnessed this scene and gritted his teeth thinking, "Damn, the space is too narrow for Snock to fight comfortably. If this continues then both of us will." Just as he was thinking this, because he was busy observing the Snock, his enemy took the opportunity to slash his bicep. Then, he also directly raised his leg, kicking straight into the blonde guy's stomach, causing him to vomit blood in pain. "Damn, I let my guard down." "Senior," Snock said worriedly as he saw Han being kicked away towards the holy sword. Meanwhile, the figure in the black cloak continued to rush in for another attack, giving Han no chance to even catch his breath. And as the two sides struggled against each other, he spoke up and asked, "Aren't you the one who killed the captain? Is that right?" Ignoring the question, Han was gritting his teeth, enduring the pressure from his strength. "This isn't good, the power gap is too big," he thought as he was pushed back. Until this young man began to pay attention to the holy sword next to him and came up with an idea. "Estet, if I pull it out, could I be as strong as Lord Zeke?" he thought to himself. Because he had nothing left to lose, Han put all his strength into throwing the cloaked figure in front of him backward. Then he reached out and gripped Estelade tightly. "I can save both Estelade and myself," Han thought. Meanwhile, these villains saw that he intended to draw his sword, so they stopped and didn't rush to attack anymore. "Draw it, of course someone like you isn't worthy of Estelade," nearby said. The remaining men in black cloaks laughed out loud after hearing that. Ignoring their taunts, Han now began to grip the hilt of the sword with both hands and began to pull it up. "Yeah, I don't think I can do it. But I have to try until the end. Giving up is only for the dead, no matter what the situation. Use every possible way to resist until the last breath, no matter how faint the hope is." Zeke's previous words began to echo in his heart, and it seemed to be giving him more strength to pull out this sword, and at this moment the sword really was slowly pulled out of the ground by Han in the eyes of the crowd. "No way, Estelade chose that guy," they all said with their mouths open so wide you could fit a whole egg in them. At this moment, according to their eyes, Han's whole body was covered in a brilliant aura. "This feeling, the power of Estelade is flowing into my body." On the opposite side, the black cloaks also knew that this was not the time to joke, so they rushed up to attack together. "He's not used to the sword yet, kill him immediately." In the back, Snock shouted at this moment, "Senpai, swing the sword." Without him having to say much, Han immediately went into the sword-swinging position. "All right. I'll swing the sword," he thought, and he put all his strength into swinging the sword forward. Speaking of Zeke and Layla, after appearing again, they found themselves in a place quite similar to the previous area. "What is this? Isn't this still the same place, or is it not?" Zeke wondered. Meanwhile, the body of the sorceress next to him began to overflow with a source of magic. Then she shook her head and said, "We can't teleport, it seems like we have to wander again, Zeke complained. And while moving, Zeke now had the opportunity to ask, but why are you inside these ruins, and who are the people chasing you? Hearing the general's question, Layla still decided to remain silent, which annoyed Zeke. More silence, you're really difficult. Anyway, I'm the one who saved your life. Hearing this, Layla finally spoke up and said, I'm not sure what you mean, that's your memory. Zeke asked again, yeah, my memory, it's true that it's my memory, but she was frustrated and couldn't say anything. But just at this moment, the pain from before struck again, making Zeke's face contort. What's wrong with you all of a sudden? Layla turned to ask. It hurts too much, Zeke replied, making her a little confused. But you're not injured. Where does it hurt? My fingers are like they're burning up, over here. Layla also took Zeke's hand and examined it a little, then said, if the outside is fine, then could it be an internal injury? Maybe something is stuck inside here. Speaking of which, she suddenly noticed something and widened her eyes. Wait a minute, it seems like there's something here. Hearing her say that, Zeke quickly brought his hand up close to his eyes to observe and exclaimed, this is the seven-branched key of fate. Shifting the scene to Han's position, at this moment he was empowered by the holy sword Estelade. His strength had completely reached another level. With each swing of the sword, he began to create streaks of sword energy, shooting towards these villains, causing them to run away like ducks. Unable to do anything, and even Han himself was surprised by the power of this sword. He tightened his grip on the sword in his hand and thought, this is the power of Estelade. It gives me the feeling that I can defeat anyone. Thinking this, he looked at the villains who were getting up in front of him and calculated, dealing with these guys alone is more than enough. No, I have to calm down. Lord Zeke has told me many times. Being crazed in battle is very dangerous. Alright, calm down. Calm down, Han thought to himself, silently reminding himself. Meanwhile, a man in a black cloak on the opposite side also realized that their weak power couldn't do anything to Han, so he began to use items to support himself. This is too troublesome, just because of this brat I have to use this thing, he thought, and he quickly took out from inside his sleeve a bottle of potion containing a purple liquid and quickly drank it all into his stomach. Immediately, his body began to be covered in a source of black-purple magic, like it was increasing the power of this villain. Not far away, the boy Snock witnessed this and became panicked. Senpai, watch out. His words immediately caught Han's attention. He noticed the figure in the black cloak, and immediately his eyes widened as he shouted, it's just like the monster we encountered in Osprin. As Han watched, the small figure in the black cloak transformed into a massive one, looking like the Hulk. His whole body was constantly overflowing with dark energy, causing Han's face to turn pale. Then, as if confident in his strength, the monster began charging aggressively, like a tank. Seeing this, Han quickly threw his fear behind him, gripped his sword tightly, and rushed to meet the attack, thinking to himself, now, with this sword in my hand, I can do it. With that, he directly swung his sword forward, creating a golden blade of light, striking straight at the massive monster. This caused a significant explosion inside the underground palace, with rubble flying everywhere. However, it still wasn't enough to trouble this evil villain. After the dust slowly settled, his body reappeared before Han without a single scratch. Seeing this, a drop of sweat involuntarily trickled down the blonde-haired guy's face. Sure enough, I can't compare to Zeke. He defeated them all with a single blow. However, this guy seems much stronger than those guys back then, Han thought to himself, before realizing something. Zeke is an entity beyond even the heavens, there's no way I can compare to him. Unaware of these thoughts in Han's mind, the massive monster in front of him had begun to attack again, with just a few stomps. He lunged right in front of him, shouted something, and then unleashed his powerful fist, aiming straight for Han's body. Seeing this, Han hurriedly raised his sword in front of his chest to block the blow. But before the weight of the attack, his body was constantly pushed backward, his feet began to form large grooves in the ground. The immense power of the sword began to give Han a little confidence in his heart. Maybe I can do it now. My failure was because my abilities hadn't reached that level. Countless skills that Zeke had taught him. As this thought emerged, a tremendous source of power appeared in Han's body. The giant monster's fist was slowly being pushed back by him, and then both of them broke free from their deadlock and jumped backward to keep their distance. Seeing this, the monster cursed loudly, "You arrogant man!" on the other side. Han didn't have time to argue with him. While this loudmouth was flapping his lips, he gripped the holy sword tightly and charged. "I can do it," he said to himself, and swung his sword with wind-ripping speed. The sword glided across the villain's throat with extreme sweetness, causing his head to be evicted immediately. Not far away, the figures in the black cloak saw this and inhaled a cold breath. Their faces couldn't hide their fear. But they didn't need to be afraid for too long, as Han targeted them. With just a quick swipe, the sword in his hand cut across their bodies. Desperate screams began to ring out, and in Han's mind, the words of exploiting the enemy's weaknesses appeared, and that when you can destroy them, you must be sure to finish them off. With this thought, Han began to wield his sword wildly, slashing the figures in black cloaks to shreds. And after cleaning up, all of these villains had kicked the bucket. Then the blonde-haired youth couldn't contain his joy and shouted, "I won." Beside him, SN saw this and hurriedly ran over to celebrate with him. "Senpai, you deserve to wield the holy sword," Han replied with a face full of pride, his nose practically growing longer. "That's right, isn't it? Ha ha ha." In the back, there was still one surviving figure in a black cloak. Hearing the joyful sounds of the two, he said, trembling, "Hee hee. You think you've won. In the end, you'll all die with the nightmare that's descending on this city. Everything will be annihilated." As he spoke, he looked at both Han and Snock with resentful eyes. This made the two young friends feel a little confused in their hearts. Cut to the location of Zeke's group. At this moment, Layla spoke up and asked, "How's your finger? Does it still hurt?" Zeke replied, "It's okay, I took medicine, so it's fine now." As he spoke, he looked at the branch that was emitting a faint blue light in his hand. Looking at it, the mage Layla seemed to notice something, and her complexion changed slightly. Seeing this, Zeke turned and asked, "Do you know anything about it?" Layla replied with a shake of her head, "Something about it makes me uncomfortable. But I'm not sure what it is right now." Saying this, her face was a little confused, while also showing some speculation. "So you knew about it before?" "I'm not so sure about that either." Layla shook her head again. Seeing this, Zeke determined that based on her expression, she didn't seem to be joking. Then, suddenly, the branch in the protagonist's hand pointed to one side, causing him to pay attention. "It's telling us to go that way," Zeke thought to himself and said, "Layla, looks like we're going to have to walk a bit far. Just the two of us. I have a lot of things I want to ask you. Even if it's something small, I want to know what you've been doing." Hearing this, Layla glanced at Zeke and nodded. "Okay, if it's something I can answer." "Alright, shall we get going then?" Zeke suggested. Following that, while moving, Layla turned and said, "The thing you want to ask me, have you decided yet?" Zeke replied with a hesitant look, but Layla, seeing him hesitate, said, "Just ask then, but in return, I'll only answer 3 questions." Hearing this, Zeke immediately asked, "Where is it?" Layla replied with a cold face, "What if I said I didn't want to answer that question?" Seeing that, he shrugged. "If you can't answer, looking at your condition, your memory must have issues." To Zeke's skepticism, Layla admitted, "That's right, but don't worry, anything I can't answer won't count." Hearing this, he began to state his issue. "Alright. So, the first question is, what is your real name?" At this question, Layla couldn't help but be surprised, turning to ask in confusion, "What, didn't I say my name is Layla already?" Zeke explained, "Isn't that a fake name? I thought you just quickly made one up when I asked your name." "Ah, or is that one that they mentioned your name?" Zeke said, recalling the black-cloaked figures he'd previously dealt with. Meanwhile, the sorceress Layla was extremely annoyed. She shouted, "No, that's not my name. My name is exactly Layla." Returning to Zeke's perspective, he started stroking his chin, pondering how to explain this. It seemed the name they mentioned had a different meaning. Does she want to reject her real name? Or maybe she doesn't have a name to begin with. If I've already touched on a sensitive point, should I ask more forcefully in the second question? Thinking this, Zeke chuckled and continued, "How did you know all the information you've mentioned so far?" Hearing this, Layla's face became a bit somber, and after a few seconds, she replied, "I dream dreams about the future of 2 people. One is the sun hero who wields the holy sword and protects the world, and the other is the powerful demon king who uses the demon sword and destroys the world, and me. I've experienced what they see and feel through those dreams," Layla said with a somewhat melancholy expression. Meanwhile, Zeke, upon hearing this, couldn't hide his surprise and asked, "So, how do those dreams end?" Layla shrugged and said, "A lot of things happen. Sometimes the demon king wins, but sometimes the opposite happens, and the sun hero wins. Sometimes both of them die, and sometimes a completely different future unfolds, leaving both of them confused, but most of the futures ultimately end with a conflict between the sun hero and the powerful demon king." Zeke asked, "Do you have any specific information about that future?" Layla replied, "I don't know the details, because my memory isn't perfect." Thinking this, Zeke felt even more curious and asked, "Why isn't it perfect?" To this question, Layla didn't answer but quickly walked forward. She said, "The 3 questions are over." Seeing this, Zeke hurriedly reached out and grabbed her shoulder from behind, reminding her, "Wait, hold on, there's still one question left." Returning to Layla's perspective, at this point she seemed a bit annoyed and said through gritted teeth, "Why are you so obsessed with questions? Aren't you in a similar situation as me? You also get information by dreaming about the future, right? Aren't you trying to deal with something with the Demon King? On this side, Zeke, after listening, was a bit stunned and thought, so, that's what she's been thinking all this time. Just like I thought Layla had regressed, it seems Layla thinks I've seen the future in a dream. The future in a dream, hearing what she said, it seems like this is a story between me and Gren Zennard. If what Layla saw is really just one of many futures, that means there are many other possibilities in the future, right? Because she said that there was a time when the Demon King defeated the hero. Then before the regression, I was in the midst of many real futures. Unfortunately, I came to a future where I had to face death. Thinking about that, Zeke's face became quite unpleasant, which made Layla, who was beside him, feel a bit embarrassed. Following that, Zeke also sighed and calmed down. There's still one question left, right? Layla nodded and replied, that's right. Have you decided which question to ask? At this moment, he suddenly pushed his face close to Layla's, making her a little embarrassed. Zeke said, this time the question is about you. What is your favorite color? This question was completely outside of Layla's expectations, making her face blank as well. What? Layla exclaimed unconsciously, while Zeke reiterated, what is your favorite color? Could it be that you don't even remember that? White, Layla replied blankly. On this side, Zeke stroked his chin and said nonchalantly, maybe that's why you took the name Layla. Alright, the questioning is over. In the back, Layla, seeing this, turned around and asked, really, it ends here, right? Zeke replied with a nod, yeah, that wasn't a question, I was just curious. You said you've seen the future, is that right? That's right, however, I don't remember most of the details. Layla replied. Then Zeke's face became serious, and he asked in a solemn tone, so, now do you think I could become the Demon King? On the opposite side, Layla narrowed her eyes and looked at Zeke, taking a few seconds. She shook her head, probably not, however, I can't be sure. Are you entering one of the futures I've seen, or I don't know if I'm entering a completely new future, but among the futures I've seen, I don't remember any future mentioning the case of you using Estelade. Hearing that, Zeke also smiled and said a sentence, in short, just because I chose Estelade, you mean I'm heading towards a future you've never seen, is that right? When saying this, Zeke's face was a bit smug, making Layla a little uncomfortable. She pointed directly at his chest and reminded, that's right, so when you leave this place, take Estelade with you and don't go near Tornium. Responding to her words, Zeke just shrugged, turned around, and left, as if he didn't pay much attention to her words. This made Layla furious but unable to do anything. Following that, the two of them started moving again, but they hadn't gone more than a few steps. Zeke suddenly stopped and cautioned, wait a moment, there's something here. Zeke frowned, and said something. According to his gaze, they had now walked to the end of the hallway and entered a cavernous area. In another development, on a high mountain peak, a figure in a black cloak was also observing the city below, and then mumbled, you are the only ones who made it here. It seems the results aren't very good, are they? As he spoke, he turned to look at his subordinates. And in response to his questioning words, the subordinates hurriedly explained, we apologize, sir, the search team couldn't return, and we couldn't contact them. The words of the underling caused the brown-haired man to become somewhat thoughtful, but very quickly, he dismissed the matter and continued to order, Phase 1 has failed, we will proceed to Phase 2, yes, sir, the two subordinates replied and quickly left. Meanwhile, the brown-haired man continued to observe the people inside the city with his reddish eyes. He muttered, they are probably experiencing happy times without knowing anything. It's truly unacceptable, ha ha ha. With that, the man broke into a villainous smile. Switching scenes to a certain inn located inside the city. At this time, his friend Snock was gazing dreamily at the ceiling and suddenly said, Senior, are you asleep? Next to him, Han replied wearily, what's wrong? Hearing this, Snock expressed his concern. Will Zeke be alright? Han replied with a firm voice, he'll probably be fine. I've never seen Zeke injured or having any problems. Snock knew this too, but he couldn't suppress his worry and said, but it's been over a day. Hearing this, Han turned to reassure him. But our worrying won't change anything. Right now, we should rest to prepare for any surprises. Zeke will know how to handle things, so don't worry. The girl next to him isn't weak either. Yes, sir. Snock replied, his face becoming a little lighter. Following that, Han lay back down and said idly, to be honest, I'm more concerned about what I heard at the ruins. A black-cloaked figure said before dying that a terrible nightmare would engulf this city. Replying to his words, Snock didn't seem to pay much attention to the threat. He said, I just think those were words to scare others because he wasn't willing to die. Han replied, if that's the case, then great. But hey, Snock, if a real nightmare comes to this city, what will you do, if you end up in a situation where it's difficult to protect your life? Han's sudden question made Snaka's face show a slight hesitation, but then he honestly admitted, to be honest, it would be very scary. But I will help everyone, I've decided to share the burden with Noel, so I can't abandon everyone and run away just because things get difficult, he said as he gently hugged the small chain mouse to his chest. Meanwhile, Han, after hearing this, glanced at the Estelade sword that he had placed to one side, just as I thought. Because I was chosen by that sword, I can't run away, Han muttered, and as if heaven wanted to test him. Then immediately, before the two of them could rest, a blood-curdling scream suddenly rang out from outside, without any hesitation. The two of them rushed to the window to observe. What's going on? The two said as they turned their eyes towards the source of the sound. According to their gazes, there was a group of extremely large humanoid monsters with fierce eyes that were continuously attacking others. Shouts of terror and anger rang out everywhere. Help, save people. A swarm of monsters had invaded the village. For Han and Snock, this scene immediately made them realize that this might be the nightmare that the black-cloaked figure had spoken of before. Returning to Zeke's position, after entering the confines of the cave, he also felt a bit uneasy in his heart and gently reached out to grip the sword on his hip, and then the sorceress Layla also discovered something and exclaimed, "Hey!" According to her gaze, there was a pocket of liquid that was squirming above. Next, as if sensing the location of the two, a sharp whip shot out from inside the clump of liquid, heading straight for the protagonist's position, but Zeke wasn't going to let it touch him so easily. With just a quick swing of his sword, he was able to easily sever the tentacle. And what was even more peculiar was that the severed tentacle flew backward and created a rather large explosion. This made Zeke couldn't help but curiously exclaim, "What the heck is this? I don't even feel like I'm being attacked. Where did it even come from?" Up ahead, Layla also furrowed her brows and reminded him, they're coming again. According to her gaze, on the opposite side, there was a group of dark shadows with humanoid shapes standing and waiting there. Then, without any warning, one of the shadow monsters in the group waved its arm, transforming it into a sharp tentacle, and lunged straight at Zeke's position. Seeing this, Zeke slightly tilted his head to dodge the attack, and at the same time lamented, "Oh man, this is too messy." With that, he proactively charged forward to attack. His body shot forward like a gust of wind and directly sliced the shadow monster in half, while they didn't even have time to react. On the other side, a shadow monster also swung its sharp arm like an arrow, lunging to attack Layla. Seeing this, Layla also used her magic, creating fireballs that bombarded continuously forward, causing the bodies of the shadow monsters to shatter into many pieces. But even though these shadow monsters aren't strong, there are so many of them, even Zeke is getting sick of fighting them non-stop. It doesn't even feel like a fight. "Hey, do you know anything about these things?" Zeke asked. Layla shook her head vigorously. "No, I have no idea what they are." Hearing that, Zeke just scratched his head in frustration. "This is a mess. I don't even know where this path leads. How long have we been stuck here?" Switching back to Layla's perspective, for some reason, she suddenly turned to the main character and asked, "Are you worried about those guys, your subordinates?" Zeke replied, "No, I'm not worried. They're people I've trained very well. They both have talent and willpower. They persevered throughout my training. However, because they both have silly dreams, it can be a little dangerous." Zeke's words made Layla a little confused, but then her eyes gradually widened in understanding. "Oh, delusions, huh? Is that what they were talking about at the bar that day?" On the side, Zeke casually swung his sword and killed a shadow monster, replying, "Yeah, they want to be heroes." To Layla, Han and Snaka's dreams made her face scrunch up. "Good heavens, people with such lofty dreams are working under you." Zeke shrugged and replied with a nonchalant expression, "Why not? No one knows more about heroes than I do." Back to Layla. She stomped on a shadow monster near her and nodded. "Anyway, if someone has that dream, they should act quickly because there's nothing more dangerous than a sense of justice without the ability to carry it out." Switching scenes to inside the city, where the huge monsters are still rampaging and chasing people. In one corner of the city, a boy is being chased by a large monster. Unfortunately for the boy, he suddenly lost his balance while running and fell forward. Taking advantage of this, the large monster rushed to take him to meet the King of Hell, but it seemed like this kid's life wasn't over yet. At the most dangerous moment, Han appeared. He used his Estelade sword as a shield to block the attack. Even so, Han's face was still dripping with sweat from the stress. Back to Zeke's location, after fighting for a while, he commented that these shadow monsters were made by the Shadow Clan. Then, like the sorceress Layla, she was also a little annoyed by these monsters. A little anger appeared in her eyes and she said coldly, "Get out of the way, extreme lightning ball destruction," she muttered. Following this sound, lightning balls appeared behind her, emitting an extremely dangerous aura. Then, without any warning, all of these balls rushed forward simultaneously, bombarding with destructive energy, causing the shadow monsters to scream in frenzy. Even Zeke had to tremble and jump backward to avoid getting hit, and so, after just one sweep, all of the shadow monsters were shot into billowing black smoke. Seeing this, Layla smoothed her hair lightly, all taken care of. Back to Zeke, he remembered that he was almost caught in the attack and complained, "You did that to me on purpose, didn't you?" Layla shrugged in response, "Anyway, it didn't cause any major damage." Next, the branch in Zeke's hand glowed brighter, as if signaling to both of them, "Looks like we're getting close, huh?" Layla commented, and Zeke nodded, adding, "Yeah, I sense something over there." So, once again, there was no one to block their path. The two of them quickly moved forward, until they both saw a branch stuck deep into the ground. Strangely, its shape was like a sword growing roots. This made Zeke stunned. "What is this? Is it a sword? Is this thing really a sword? What's this? Why is it moving on its own?" Following their eyes, after Zeke went to this area, the small branch in his hand automatically floated in the air, flying towards the sword in front. Next, the branch automatically attached to a part of the sword's root and seamlessly connected, as if they were originally part of each other. They really merged into one, huh? Zeke frowned, thinking. And in both of their expectant eyes, the sword began to emit a dazzling aura, and a part of the roots on the sword's body receded. "Look!" Zeke exclaimed, while the sorceress Layla curiously observed. She said, "I don't know either, this has never happened in the future I saw." In front, the sword began to shake non-stop, making Zeke speculate, "It seems like it's calling you. Try pulling it out." Hearing these words, he slowly moved forward, thinking as he walked. Clearly, the key to bending fate has merged into this sword. If so, the true form of the key is this sword. Thinking this, he reached out with both hands. Gripping the hilt of the sword, a strange feeling began to surge through Zeke's body. "It's warm, huh? I thought it would feel cold like other swords, but it's like holding someone's hand." Thinking this, he pulled the sword out of the ground to examine it more closely. And from inside the sword, a gentle suction force began to emanate, drawing Zeke's magic power into the sword. Then, suddenly a large explosion occurred, surprising Layla. After the dust from the explosion cleared, she hurriedly looked forward and asked, "Zeke, are you alright?" Zeke was holding the sword tightly and chuckled, "This thing is really awesome." Back to the start. Han's battle with the giant monster. At this time he was still using his sword, struggling to withstand its powerful fist and reminding the boy behind him, "Run away quickly." Seeing this, the kid didn't stay to get in the way. He immediately ran away, thanking him, hero. Then, after waiting for the boy to leave the danger zone, he gritted his teeth. He used all the strength in his body to swing his sword, cutting through the giant monster's belly, killing it instantly. As soon as he finished, Han didn't even have time to breathe before turning to remind Snock, "Quickly evacuate the people outside the city gate first." "Yes sir," Snock replied and quickly ran to work, while in another corner, the soldiers were also struggling to fight off the attacks of these monsters. But these monsters are also very smart, they even know how to use weapons. This made him fight until he was exhausted. "Damn it, these monsters just kept appearing without end," he sighed. At the same time, Snock also tiredly ran over. "Senior, everyone outside the city gate has been safely evacuated." Hearing that, Han also nodded and directed, "Very good, now block this gate immediately." At his command, Snock started using his powers. He lifted each large piece of rock that was scattered around and threw it to the entrance to block the entrance. Looking at this, Han also nodded in satisfaction. "Good job Snock, first we have to deal with the monsters inside." Just like that, the two of them started to combine together to deal with all the monsters inside. With just one swing of his sword, Han created a beam of yellow light, cutting down everything in front of him, while the Snock also created sharp stone pillars, piercing through the monsters' bodies. On the other side, the soldiers also began to stabilize their formation and started to fight fiercely. Who knows how much time had passed. Snock also reported again, "Senior, now the monsters inside the castle have almost all been dealt with." Hearing this, Han wiped the sweat from his face and breathed a sigh of relief. "Thank God," while fighting. "Reinforcements have also arrived, so we can hold off the monsters outside the castle steadily." But will it really end here? The hell he spoke of. Is that all? When thinking about this, Han felt a little uneasy in his heart, and sure enough. That's right, right after that, suddenly behind him there was a loud explosion along with someone's scream. Hearing this explosion, everyone turned around at the same time and discovered a pile of rocks. The Snock that blocked the gate was destroyed, and once again, the monsters from outside poured in extremely terrifying numbers. Looking at this, the soldiers also clenched their weapons in their hands and shouted, "Not good, they are coming again." As soon as he finished speaking, a sword suddenly flew from afar. It quickly passed through the necks of the soldiers and sent them to meet the king of hell in an instant. Unfortunately too late, someone's teasing voice rang out. Then the sword returned to the hand of a man in black cloak. He stared at him with sharp eyes and asked, "Magic power possessor, what are you?" Turning his gaze to the black-robed man, he immediately felt an extreme danger in his heart and thought, he knows what this sword is. Sure enough, he was also in league with those people in the ruins. Wait, if that's the case, then this is what the black-robed guy mentioned earlier after a real nightmare. Now, following his gaze, the black and white-clothed men began to combine with the monsters to attack from all sides. Meanwhile, a knight captain also quickly commanded, "Everyone come out and stop it." "Yes, understood," the group of soldiers replied. Then quickly rushed to attack the leader of this group wearing black cloaks. For the leader, being attacked by these soldiers made him feel a bit angry, so once again, not knowing what skill this guy used, the sword in his hand shot forward, cutting across the necks of all the soldiers with a speed that tore through the wind, making them not even have time to react before they all went to meet the king of hell together. Looking at this, a knight was so desperate that he dropped his sword on the ground. How absurd. It can't be. At the same time the giant monsters also started aiming at him with their dangerous eyes. This made the soldier's whole body tremble non-stop. He was going to die, he softly said. But luckily for him at the most dangerous moment, Snock came to his rescue. Quickly bend down, he shouted and used his magic, creating sharp stone pillars stabbed straight towards these monsters, causing their bodies to be pulled up into the air. But on the other side, Han also did not delay, finishing off a monster, and then Snock also picked up the soldier's sword and gave it to him. "Wake up, we are missing people now," said he, and Han rushed to block the attack of the giant monsters. Just like that, the two began to fight fiercely. Makes the soldiers in the rear also feel hope rising. Hope is gradually appearing. "Don't be afraid, don't forget that the brave warriors are in front of us, quickly go protect the people." After hearing the captain's words, the soldiers slowly regained their fighting spirit and rushed to the battle to stop this group of monsters. Look at this, the leader in black cloak. He remained silent, not saying a word, subtly observing the situation. Han was fighting on one side, when suddenly he rushed in to attack. Luckily, Han noticed in time and quickly turned around to block the attack, but his strike was incredibly powerful, causing the blonde to be pushed back. His feet dug 2 grooves into the ground. While they were locked in a struggle, the villain glared and said, "How could someone like you possess such power?" Cut to Zeke, who, along with the sorceress Layla, has been teleported back to the first room. "So, it really has returned to where it belongs, hasn't it?" Zeke said softly. Layla confidently replied, "I told you, I knew things would be this way." Zeke responded with a question, "Just based on intuition, you were able to use such high-level spatial teleportation?" Answering this, Layla shook her head slightly and said, "This isn't magic. It's just that the sword has a special connection to this place, so I can teleport back and forth." "How did you know that?" Zeke asked further. Layla said it was her feeling. Back to Zeke. He still didn't understand what the sword in his hand actually was. He thought to himself, "It called us and brought us back here. What is it, anyway?" Just as he thought this, the room suddenly shook a few times, causing Zeke to frown, sensing something. It seems like something is happening to the city. Some people are trying to attack the entire city. First, I need to go out and see what's going on. Saying this, he glanced around and discovered that inside the room there were countless bodies of the black-cloaked figures who had been defeated by Han. There are more bodies now. Was it Han and Snock who did this? Speaking of which, the main character's face suddenly froze. He realized something and quickly looked at the stone pedestal where the sword was placed and discovered it was gone. This made Zeke astonished. Did he pull out the Estelade sword? This aura is Han's, could it be him? Thinking this, although a little surprised, he quickly turned and said, "Hey, let's get out of here, we need to go out and check a few things." Beside him, the sorceress Layla's face was pale. She muttered in a confused voice, "It's because of me, they came here to find me, they're attacking the city to capture me." Hearing this, Zeke frowned and asked, "Does that make sense? They're willing to declare war on the entire city just to find you?" Layla responded with a slight nod, her panicked face still evident. This made Zeke a little wary. Just to capture one person, they're causing this much chaos. That's enough to show how crazy they are, or she must be that important. Thinking about this, he sighed and continued, "First of all, I must make it clear that all this is because of me, so get that thought out of your head right now. Those who attack a city just to capture one person are truly bastards. First, we should go up there to check and see if they're really targeting you," Zeke said, pointing up at the ceiling, which was constantly shaking from the battle above. Hearing him say that, Layla voiced her thoughts. they will definitely be completely different from the people we've encountered before, they've come with overwhelming force. The main character responded with a confident smile, it's okay, although the time may be short, I am invincible right now, and then. Very quickly after that, the two of them ran outside to witness the scene of the city being destroyed, shouting and fighting echoed everywhere, only he was able to smile in this situation, he thought to himself, it's such a familiar scene when I was alive under that identity, this is a familiar scene, like every day, just as he thought this. The black-cloaked figure spotted Layla and immediately shouted at each other, quick, capture her. You can chop her limbs into 4, but you still have to keep her alive, the red-haired man spoke, and the hounds behind him quickly moved forward. Seeing this, Layla bit her lip and reached out, as if to use her magic, however, before she could activate it, Zeke stepped forward calmly. He whistled teasingly, causing the villains to be stunned. As they turned to look at each other, who is that guy, never mind, kill him if he's with her, the red-haired man ordered, and the hounds screamed and rushed forward. Speaking of Layla, she looked at the back in front of her and reminded him, get out of the way, this is my problem, Zeke replied with a slightly annoyed tone, I'm in a good mood right now, don't ruin it for nothing. Saying this, the sword in his hand began to spread out with energy, while the cloaked figures didn't seem to sense this and still rushed forward, like mad dogs, seeing them so unafraid of death. Zeke smiled and thought, looks like a warm-up before the meal, huh? Saying this, he swung his sword forward, releasing a blue energy, straight at the black-cloaked figures rushing towards him. As a result, immediately afterwards, their bodies were enveloped inside an energy vortex. Until the energy vortex disappeared, it only left a deep hole in the ground, and the black-cloaked figures that had rushed forward just now didn't even leave a trace. Seeing this, the red-haired man's eyes turned dull, no way, how could something like this happen? Back with Zeke, looking at the results he created, he was so excited he clenched his fist, this is it, just now. It's not like I used some amazing technique, I just simply overflowed with magic and released it, but having power is really great. The only regrettable thing is that I can only use it a few times. Thinking about that, Zeke felt a little regretful. Back to the front, the redhead now realized how formidable he was, he didn't dare attack recklessly anymore and cautiously asked, who are you? In response, Zeke didn't answer but asked back, who are you people to dare cause chaos in a peaceful city like this? At the front, the redhead also didn't answer but continued to ask, what's your relationship with Layla, anyway? As he spoke, he reached into his coat pocket, as if to take something out. But how could this action escape Zeke's eyes? With a single leap, he lunged to the front of the redhead and punched the signal flare away. The flare broke into pieces. Who were you planning to send a signal to? Don't do something useless. Even if you don't call them, I'll find them myself. After all, this isn't going to be a prolonged fight. As he said that, the protagonist went into a sword-swinging stance again. These bad guys also guessed what he was about to do, so they ran away while shouting to each other, get out of the way. Seeing this, Zeke behind them smiled and ran after them, swinging his sword to finish them off. Cut to Han's location. At this time, he was still arguing with the purple-haired guy in front of him. He shouted, what's it to you? With that, Han put all his strength into swinging his sword, pushing his body backward. Seeing this, the purple-haired guy also jumped back a few steps to keep his distance and said irritably, this isn't something you should have. Hearing this, Han also started to feel mad and yelled, if you're jealous, then come and get it. If something doesn't have an owner, whoever picks it up first gets it. What's the point of distinguishing what's yours and what's mine, you idiot, you, who wears a gloomy cloak, don't suit Estelade at all, close your filthy eyes and get lost. As he spoke, Han pointed his sword directly at his face. Our guy Han cursed in one breath, making the purple-haired guy stunned. Then, after a few seconds, he did the so angry that he laughed thing and sheathed his sword. Oh, this is something new, isn't it? It's been a long time since someone dared to be so rude to me. What's your name? Han answered with an annoyed tone. What can you do if you know? The purple-haired guy shrugged and replied, I'm just curious about the name of the person chosen to be the master of Estelade. By the way, my name is Immer. As he said that, he started waving his index finger, creating strands of energy that rushed towards Han. Looking at this, even though our blonde friend didn't know what it was, he was alert and jumped back to keep his distance. However, these energy strands were still rushing forward relentlessly, which made Han's face turn pale. Meanwhile, Immer sneered, come on, master of Estelade. How long can you resist before you tell me your name?